Okay, gotta be honest. When I hear sustainable meat processing, it's not exactly like fireworks go off, know?
Yeah.
But you, our listener, you're digging into sustainable food, and you sent over some stuff from GreenFlow Environmental Solutions. And let me tell you, it's way more interesting than I thought it'd be. We're gonna dive deep, deep into the waste that comes with getting meat on your plate. And
Yeah.
trust me, it's more interesting than it sounds. GreenFlow, they're kind of like the, what, waste whisperers? Like helping companies deal with the not so pretty side of things, but responsibly.
Yeah, and it's a way bigger deal than people realize. Greenfield's material, it really hits you with how much waste there is, right? Like organic byproducts, liquids, the whole shebang.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just, oh, toss it in the trash. We're talking landfills filling up,
Mm.
potential for pollution if it's not handled right. It's complicated.
It really is. It's like we all want our bacon, but we also want a healthy planet. So how do we make that work?
Exactly.
And that's where GreenFlow jumps in. They've got these like tailored waste plans, eco-friendly disposal. They're even planting trees.
Yeah. Which I think is a really good sign, right? They're actually trying to walk the walk on this sustainability thing, not just talk about it. Though we should say, planting trees alone isn't going to solve everything. It's more like one piece of a giant puzzle.
Right. It's not a magic solution or anything.
Exactly.
Actions speak louder. Right. And speaking of actions, they do this cool thing. It's called a process overview. Basically, they break down a company's entire waste stream, what kind of waste, how much, how often the holdover works.
Wow.
It's like, you know how you do an energy audit at home to save on your bills? It's like that, but for trash.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah, it's amazing how much waste companies might not even realize they're making.
Oh, for sure. And it's about finding those areas where they can do things better, more efficiently. And remember, we're not just talking about like leftover scraps of meat here. We're talking packaging, used cooking oil, all sorts of stuff, each with its own challenges.
Okay, see, this is where it gets really interesting for you, dear listener. Think about the choices you make at the store when you're picking where to eat. This shows you there are companies trying to make a difference, even if it's behind the scenes.
Totally. It really highlights how sustainability isn't just about the food itself, it's the whole journey, right?
Yeah.
From farm to table and beyond. Seeing companies like GreenFlow trying to make that journey better, it's encouraging,
Yeah, it's hopeful, right?
definitely.
Okay, so we've established meat processing equals a ton of waste and that GreenFlow is tackling it head on. But let's get into the nitty-gritty, the details. Their website, they have this whole FAQ section breaking down the specific waste they handle. And get this, we're not talking your average banana peel here.
Right.
We're talking hazardous waste, industrial waste, even chemical waste. This is serious stuff.
Yeah, this is where it gets real, environmentally speaking. These aren't your typical trash items. If they're not handled properly, it could be a real problem, contaminating soil, water, even the air.
Exactly. And I gotta say, when I see secure destruction on their website, like my inner conspiracy theorist goes a little wild. It sounds so intense.
I bet.
What does that even mean when we're talking about like leftover stuff from making hot dogs?
Well, it's not as dramatic as a spy movie or
Oh,
anything,
good.
but it is important. Basically, it's making sure that certain types of waste are totally neutralized, made harmless, think super high temperatures, special chemical treatments, the works. And the key is, it's all controlled. Nothing harmful leaking out.
So it's not just about tossing things in the right bin. There's like serious science happening here.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where those regulations we talked about come in. GreenFlow, they really emphasize following the rules, especially Canadian law, which honestly is reassuring.
Right. Nobody wants to think their food is coming from a company that's cutting corners when it comes to like the planet and stuff. But why all the emphasis on regulations? What's that mean for us regular folks just trying to enjoy our meal?
That's a great question. It comes down to the bigger picture of sustainability, right? Regulations, they're there to protect us, protect the environment. So when GreenFlow is all about compliance, it's like they're saying, hey, we take this seriously. And that means stricter controls on things like emissions, handling those hazardous materials, and making sure everything's disposed of properly.
So stricter regulations, could that mean like cleaner environments, safer food?
Yeah, exactly. Of course, there can be trade-offs. Sometimes regulations mean higher costs for businesses, which could mean higher prices for you and me at the grocery store.
Yeah.
It's a balance, right? But it's important to remember those rules are there for a reason, to protect us and the planet.
It really makes you think. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, like, what's for dinner? But there's this whole other world happening in the background.
And that's what's so cool about these deep dives, right? They connect those everyday choices
Yeah.
to these big systems. Speaking of, there's something else in GreenFlow stuff that I found really interesting.
Wait, you mean besides the part where they plant a tree for every service they do? Okay, gotta admit, I love that kind of thing. It's like they know that even with the best disposal methods, there's still some impact, so they're trying to give back a little.
Totally. Now, to be fair, one tree isn't going to completely offset, processing tons of meat waste.
Right, gotta keep it real.
But it does show this trend where companies realize they've got a role to play in taking care of the planet. You see more businesses doing stuff like this, whether it's planting trees, renewable energy, supporting conservation, all of it.
Yeah, it's not just about doing the bare minimum anymore, right?
Right. Companies realize that sustainability can actually be good for business, too. It's not just good PR. It's about being a responsible part of the world. And that's a big deal. We need everyone on board with that, businesses, governments, individuals, if we want a truly sustainable future.
I am 100% on board with that. We've covered a lot here. The crazy amount of waste from meat processing, the need to deal with it responsibly, and how those regulations play a part. But I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, for sure. We've been focusing on the back end of things, right? But it makes you wonder, what's happening upstream in meat production? What innovations are out there to make less waste in the first place?
Ooh, that is a good question. Are there ways to make the whole system more circular, like a loop instead of a straight line?
Yeah. Exactly. And that's something worth exploring further.
Right.
Because if you think about it, GreenFlow, they were really into those tailored waste plans,
Yeah.
right? It's not like one solution for everything. A huge meatpacking plant, it's kind of different issues than that little butcher shop down the street.
Oh, totally. Which makes me think about technology. Are we talking like high-tech solutions here to reduce waste, or is it more about like just using common sense?
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
And that's what's so cool about it. Like, on the one hand, you've got AI, right? Optimizing those production lines to cut down on waste, even bioreactors. Can you believe it? Turning that organic waste into energy.
Wait, hold on. Bioreactors turning trash into energy. That's some sci-fi stuff right there.
I know, right?
But that's a perfect example of that circular system we were talking about, isn't it?
100%.
Right.
It's about seeing waste as something useful, not just something to get rid of.
Right.
And that's the kind of thinking that's pushing innovation in sustainable food, well, in everything, really.
So is the industry actually changing? I mean, are meat producers embracing this whole sustainability thing, or are they just like dipping their toes in the water?
$1 million question right there.
Yeah.
It's complicated. There's definitely more awareness, for sure, driven by, like we said, consumers A&D, those regulations.
Yeah, nobody wants to be the bad guy, environmentally speaking.
Exactly. And as more people care about sustainability when they're buying food, companies are realizing, hey, this can be good for us too.
So it's not just about doing the right thing, it's good business sense.
Exactly. But we got to remember, changing a whole industry, especially one as big as meat production, it takes time.
Yeah, for sure.
New tech, new ways of doing things, that costs money. Not everyone can just flip a switch.
Which brings us back to those regulations, right? It's like they help level the playing field.
Absolutely. Those regulations, they can be the push some companies need to make those changes, even if it's more expensive at first. And as those sustainable practices become more common, the cost usually comes down. So it's easier for everyone else to follow suit.
Right, so it's a win-win, like a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
I like that.
Except this time, it's sustainability lifting the whole meat industry towards a greener future.
I love it.
Okay, maybe a little cheesy, but you get the idea.
Totally. But this whole sustainable meat thing, we often forget a really important part, the consumer.
Oh, interesting.
We talk about producers, processors, companies like GreenFlow dealing with the waste, but what about the folks actually eating the meat? Where do they fit in?
That's a good point. It's easy to get lost in the weeds, forget that we all have a role to play. So how do our individual choices, like at the grocery store, how do those impact sustainable meat production?
It's all about demand. As consumers, we have a lot of power.
Really?
When we support companies who are doing things right, we're sending a message. We're saying, hey, we value this.
It's like voting with our wallets, right?
Exactly. Every purchase is a vote for the kind of world we want.
I like that. So we can choose brands that match our values. What else can we do as consumers?
Thinking about how much meat we eat is a big one. Even cutting back a little can have a real impact.
Good point. It's not about everyone going vegetarian or vegan necessarily, but just being more mindful, right?
Right. And when we do choose meat, looking for more sustainable options.
Yeah.
Grass-fed beef, pasture-raised poultry, things like that.
Well, and checking those certifications, right? Organic, fair trade.
Yes. Those certifications, they can be really helpful for making better choices. It's about being informed, realizing that our choices, they matter. They ripple through the whole system.
Wow, this deep dive has been full of surprises. I never thought talking about meat processing waste would be so interesting, honestly.
Right.
But it's got me thinking, we've been kind of focused on meat waste being a problem, but what if it's also like part of the solution?
Whoa, now you're thinking. It's like that circular economy idea, right? Instead of just make it, trash it. It's a loop?
Exactly. Like all those byproducts, maybe they're more useful than we think.
You're onto something. There's a whole movement to get creative with those byproducts. We talked about bioreactors making energy, but get this. They could be used for fertilizer, bioplastics even,
Okay, what else? Don't leave me hanging.
pharmaceuticals.
No way! Hold up. Medicines. From the stuff we usually toss out. You're messing with me.
Nope, it's true. And that's the cool part of this whole circular economy thing. Seeing potential, not just trash. It's a total mind shift, not just for companies, but for all of us.
So instead of make it, use it, toss it, it's more like make it, use it, reuse it, do it again.
Exactly. But that takes everyone working together. Scientists, businesses, even us regular folks. We need new tech, new ideas for old stuff. And indeed people demanding better from companies.
Wow. It's like we all have a piece of the puzzle, but we're still figuring out how it all fits.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But the important thing is, we're talking about it, right?
Right.
The more we understand, the better we can make things.
Right. Knowledge is power and all that.
Exactly.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by the problems, but it's also good to hear about the progress, you know? Every little bit helps.
Absolutely. Even just being aware of these issues, talking about them, that's a step forward. Because then we want to do something, and that's how real change happens.
You said it. Well, we've given our listener a lot to think about today.
And hopefully got them curious.
For sure. We explored this whole world of meat processing waste, found out about some really cool solutions, even reimagined how things could be.
And I think the big takeaway is we all have a part to play. What we buy, how we live, it all matters. If we want a sustainable future for food, it's on all of us.
That's a great way to put it. Couldn't have said it better myself. So to our listener out there, stay curious, keep asking those questions, and remember, your choices, they make a difference.
Because even something like meat waste, it can lead to amazing discoveries. We've just got to look for them.
Love it. And on that note, that's a wrap on this deep dive, everyone. Thanks for listening.